Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from today. I'm Sean Pratt, your friendly marketing manager, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's webinar. The topic we have for you is Behind the Curtain, the road to Terraform with JFrog, and we're super excited to share with you how JFrog uses Terraform and how we arrived at our new Terraform support in Artifactory. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss anything, as we'll be sending out a recording within 24 hours. If you have any questions regarding this webinar or further questions post-event, please email webinars@jfrog.com and we'll get back to you. Also, as a reminder, please use the Q&A chat window at the very bottom of your screen. We have our experts on the call here today, and they will be happy to answer your questions. So don't be shy, feel free to put them in as you have them, and we will answer them promptly. So I'm going to go ahead and kick things off today by introducing our speakers. Today, we're really fortunate to have with us Amit Daniel, who's our DevOps team lead at JFrog, and Barak Chacham, a software engineer at JFrog. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Amit, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Sean. Hi, everyone. Great having you here with us today. I have a question for the audience. How much time are you wasting initializing your Terraform environments? I can share with you that we used to spend hours initializing our Terraform environments, and that's exactly what we are going to discuss today. We are going to present what we changed and how it's going to improve your daily work. Before we jump into the meat of the presentation, I just wanted to do a super short introduction to JFrog for those that are not familiar with us. Our mission is to make every software creator successful by providing the best solution for fast and secure continuous releases. We do that with JFrog DevOps platform, which includes the different applications you see here. And today we will spend some time talking about Artifactory in particular. And lastly, a little bit about our organization. We served some of the largest companies in the world across nearly every vertical. And there are over 1,000 frogs globally with offices across North America, Europe, and Asia. Let me give you a short introduction on JFrog infrastructure layer. We have around 50 Kubernetes clusters across 3 public cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and GCP. JFrog is running the workload in 40 different regions. DevOps Infra manage around 130 Terraform workspaces, and the scale is massive, as you can see. In other words, we are heavy Terraform users. Today, I'm here with you to share my experience and stories since I joined JFrog, what I did with Terraform and what we learned through the process. Let's talk about 5 main steps that improved our Terraform usage. Align Terraform current infrastructure to be managed only using infrastructure as code. 2 major branches for development workspaces and production workspaces. And Terraform Flow, where we can change the module without breaking workspaces. 1 master branch for the modules repository with tags per module. Adopt an orchestrator over Terraform. We need to run all our Terraform workspaces automatically every day to detect drifts. Split the permissions between different groups that consume our Terraform code. Run logical code after every step, before or after the plan, before or after the apply, etc. And of course, modules decoupling. Obviously, we face some challenges. Managing the entire JFrog SaaS infrastructure layer without proper infrastructure as code configured is almost impossible. Naming convention, security standards, delivery time. Without infrastructure as code, we can't monitor production changes, misconfiguration in every resource, massive changes, etc. It's super hard to find who did a change in a cloud resource without infrastructure as code. Not only did we have manual work, we also faced Terraform code spread over multiple branches. Before moving to use Terraform with 2 major branches, we found ourselves with a branch per feature environment. This caused us a lot of drifts. We couldn't understand which configuration was running on every environment. The solution for that was splitting Terraform code into 2 main repositories, one for the live code and one for the Terraform modules. For the live code, all the development phases were against the dev branch. Moving the Terraform modules to a dedicated repository with a single branch, and every module gets its own tag, and the live code will consume it. In this case, you can manage exactly which module will run on every workspace. The solution to reduce the dependencies we had for every Terraform workspace is modules decoupling. Now I have a question for the audience about that. Why can't we add a database if we have drifts in our Kubernetes cluster workspace? Splitting our Terraform modules into 4 main modules, networking layers that will contain the VPC, subnet, NAT gateway, etc. Kubernetes layer using the networking resources as a data, databases layer, and object storage. This separation gave us the option to continue working on a layer without fixing drifts, if any, in another module. Make sure that we can build our infrastructure with no dependencies. I have another question for the audience. How many times have you built a resource and you find that this resource has security vulnerabilities and now you can't fix it? Here comes the magic. Think that you need to create a database and the database instance is ready and we are happy. Customers start to use this database and they are also happy. But now the security team found that this DB is not encrypted. And now you need to create a new database and migrate all the workloads to this DB. Right now, after the Terraform plan, we are running an open source application for infrastructure as code security vulnerability scanning. And we are seeing the vulnerabilities before the resource is being created. With this approach, JFrog creates a resource with no vulnerabilities. Also, when you're scanning your plan and state, you can always see current vulnerabilities and mitigations. If there is one thing that I want that you will take from this webinar part, is that we couldn't able to get to this solution without a strong collaboration between DevOps and R&D. In JFrog, we prefer to drink our own whiskey, and for that we partner the entire development phase with R&D about the Terraform features in Artifactory that help us to achieve this amazing milestone. And to continue talking about this process, I want to hand it over to Barak.
Thank you, Amit. That was a nice story, a great lesson. Now let's see how things are really happening. Let's start talking about the JFrog solution for Terraform. Artifactory has local, remote, and virtual repositories implementation for the Terraform registry. All of them support both modules and providers. Let's elaborate about the benefits of each repository type. The remote repository, which will most probably point to the Artifactory, to the HashiCorp official Terraform registry, saves your outside network traffic, gives you more stability and faster download speed. The local repository pushes you to the transition from source control modules to binaries. DevOps used to resolve their modules directly from their source control. Now with Artifactory, those modules become binaries with all the benefits out of it. You get checksum and checksum deploy immutability, as opposed to source code without the Git reaction. How can you tell which commit or tag is newer? Source code is mutable, binaries are not, and therefore they are more secured. Beside that, you get the versioning, replication, release bundles, and many other advantages you're getting with Artifactory. By using the latest release of the JFrog CLI, we are also allowing you to publish your entire modules monorepo to Artifactory Terraform repository in one action And lastly, we have the virtual repo solution that will let you aggregate all your local and remote Terraform repositories into one single source of truth. Now let's take a little tour and see how things are really happening. I have already created us one local repository for the modules, one local repository for the providers, one remote repository pointing to the official HashiCorp Terraform registry, and one repository aggregating the three of them together. Here we have our monorepo of our in-house AWS modules we're about to publish to Artifactory. First, we will create a one-time configuration to choose the Artifactory instance and the targeted repository. So we choose the Terraform modules local repo. And here you can see the configuration folder that was created. And now we will run the Terraform publish action. We will provide the namespace, base provider for the modules, and of course the tag. Perfect. Here we can see the destination the modules were published to. And now let's explore those modules a bit. Here we have our new Kubernetes V10 module. In its Artifactory info tab, we can see some extra data like providers and module dependencies, inputs, outputs, and even the README file without downloading the entire module. Besides that, you are also able to browse and search over all your published modules and providers. Now let's get back to the code and let's create some simple module. We will define a provider, the AWS provider. And one module. And of course, we want to resolve it from Artifactory. The source of the module is built from the Artifactory domain, the repository key, _, and finally, the required module in the structure of namespace, module name, and base provider. Now we are almost ready to initialize, but let's create a token with the native Terraform login command first. So Artifactory supports the native Terraform login command. It will open up the browser automatically, and since we are already logged in as admin, we just need to approve, and the token was created automatically. We can close this page now. And now we can run our Terraform init action. And all the module and the provider is getting downloaded from Artifactory. As you can see, we have installed our latest version of the EFS module. We've just deployed the V10 because we haven't put any version inside the module itself. So it took the latest tag. Now that we are able to initialize our environment with our custom modules, let's see how we can benefit out of the Terraform backend repository solution. Artifactory has a local repository implementation that supports Terraform remote backend, including workspaces and lock-in mechanism. In just a few minutes, you are able to migrate your existing backend solution to Artifactory and enjoy many other benefits. It is easy to maintain, managing all your users in one place. It is safe. All the state's content is encrypted in the actual object storage. You have a full state files history, including publish time and the user who created it. And you have a smart diff between the state files to allow you monitor your changes easily when a problem pops up. And let's take a tour over here as well. So now we are going to migrate an existing Kubernetes workspace to use the Artifactory backend. First, we will configure our backend to point to the Artifactory TF backend repository. And second, we will try to initialize the environment. Well, we need to create a new workspace first. So let's create a workspace for our webinar. And now we are ready to run the Terraform in it again. By the way, we already have the token for the Artifactory domain from the previous Terraform login. So we don't need to log in again now. We already have the token. Perfect. Finally, we are ready to import our existing state to Artifactory. Just push it. And now we're gonna edit our module. We're gonna add some new RBAC rule. So we're gonna have some difference from the existing state. And let's run some Terraform plan. Okay, perfect. Let's apply those changes. Great. Let's navigate back to the UI and explore our states. We can see the state latest of our current active state and the state.timestamp of the previous state. We can also see the user who created the state file, when it was created, and of course to read and search in the actual state content. And lastly, one of the best features is to compare the latest state with the old state. So we can see the serial was changed. But probably more interesting for us is to see the RBAC rule that we added. So you can see how easy it is to see the differences between the state files and monitor what was changed. To those of you who survived, we presented here today the way JFrog is using Terraform and the way JFrog makes your Terraform solution work better, faster, and more reliably. Thank you for joining us today, and may the frog be with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barak and Amit, for taking the time presenting this information to us and also putting it together. To those on the call, if you haven't asked any questions or you want to ask any questions, now is your chance. Hopefully you've been putting them in and had them answered as the session has gone on. But we have had a couple that have come in that we want to field to our presenters here. And we're going to go ahead and do that. The first question I think is best for Amit. And the question is, why do you need to decouple your models if you're running a daily automation build?
Thanks, Sean. This is a great question. It's actually not just related to a Terraform drifts, but also maintaining multiple layers of infrastructure. There is no relation between the Kubernetes layer and the database layer. So why they need to be in the same state?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that great example, Amit. Barak, another question that's come in that I think maybe you could answer is, what are the benefits to using Artifactory as the backend versus, say, a regular S3 backend?
Okay, that's actually also a great question. Well, first we have the full state files history since the beginning of time. And with the smart diff capability, it allows you to monitor your entire changes in your workspace perfectly. So this is a great advantage. And beside that, you can manage your users and permissions in one place instead of two. And that makes things much more easier and much better to maintain.
So given that we're running a little bit short on time, we have the opportunity to answer one more question. I think this one is probably a lot of the attendees here are curious about, especially those that are existing JFrog customers. But when will JFrog support infrastructure as code scanning? Maybe Barak, you want to answer this one?
Yeah, sure. Well, that's an easy question to answer. We have just announced at SwampUp last week that infrastructure as code scanning is coming in Q3. So keep an eye out for that feature coming soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Barak. Great. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our webinar today. If you didn't have your questions answered, no worries. We'll follow up with you directly. I want to thank again Barak and Amit for presenting today, and of course, everyone for joining us. Be on the lookout for more great JFrog webinars coming soon. Thanks, everyone, and we will catch you next time.